All right, here with Shon Plack, manager of the sport development for the Royals. Was also with PBR, building champions, coached at Avila where he played, and then Mike Arbuckle, senior advisor to the GM, scouting and player development for the Royals, but was with the Phillies forever as scouting director. So I appreciate you guys jumping on with me.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to do it.
We rolled the big guns out for this one.
That's
Well,
it.
I don't know
That's
about
it.
that,
Yes.
but we're always up for talking baseball. I know that.
Yeah. And Shon, it seems like the White Sox kind of got this going with the ACE program, but then it seems like the Royals have kind of taken the ball and rolled with it. I remember being in Jupiter. Seemed like the Royal Scout team was one of the first scout teams that I remember seeing in Jupiter. And I think Eric Hosmer was on one of those teams. I know there's a lot of future big leaguers that played for those Royals teams. But what was it for you guys? Okay, the White Sox kind of start this thing. What was it for you all that said, okay, we need to kind of get this thing going with the Royals?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved since then. We started really becoming more aggressive with it, I guess, in 2016, from week to week, with growing Dayton's Sons group, and just playing more of an impact in those kids as they started entering high school. With their development from week to week instead of 2 or 3 times a year. A lot of it is just more than the on the field part of the development. We're trying to get these kids to learn how to self manage, a little bit off the field as well. So that's kind of where we've gone the last 4 or 5 years, since we started really going week to week, with our teams, and they travel together, they stay together. We do some of the same stuff that our minor league players would do with some of the game plan, the educational stuff that we have, and just individual development both on and off the field. And so I think we're kind of pleased with the feedback that we get from some of the college coaches that take our kids, and some of the players that have been drafted. Hopefully have a little bit more information on them, and we have some we've played more of an impact in their personal development, not just with their baseball development.
And that's a service thing. So for somebody that maybe doesn't have something like this in their area, and for anybody that hasn't seen the Royals Academy in Kansas City, it's phenomenal. But they do a lot of training there, and life skills training too. For somebody that maybe doesn't have this in their area, how can they maybe start to get the ball rolling with something like this?
Well, our outreach, we're a regional franchise, so we're obviously trying to impact, Missouri and Kansas, Iowa, Arkansas. So we've had some reach into, different parts. One of the things is, if anybody wants to pick our brain on how to start a program or to grow this, they could feel free to contact us. But one is just make sure that you're committed to the player, not only on and off the field, and have a plan that is kind of a long term. We've done a lot with USA baseball and tried to follow their plan, and it's a good place to start. Just trying to follow what they've put out on websites, and just use your resources, and hopefully we can be a resource for programs that kind of want to do what we're doing, or kind of grow what they already have.
For youth parents, coaches, players listening in right now, I mean, what recommendations would you have for them, or what would you guys like to see out of youth baseball right now that maybe you're not seeing?
I think it's really important. We all started playing the game because it was fun to play. And I think just we need to take the pressure off younger kids and just have fun, number one. I think today's kids, they're used to being active, they're used to video games, they're used to immediate feedback. So I think organizing practices so there's not a lot of standing around where kids get bored. We need to set up practices where they move station to station. They can get through an hour and a half, 2 hour practice and really have maybe a couple water breaks, but otherwise they're on the move and doing things. So I think it's really important that we focus on practice organization and on keeping things fun and not putting a lot of pressure on kids. It's important to understand that the game is a game of failure. And so it's okay to fail. It's okay to strike out. It's okay to walk a batter. And parents and coaches have to understand that. And we keep preaching with our teams, stay aggressive. It's okay to make a mistake, but just stay aggressive and keep having fun, and let's just keep going after it. And I think it develops an environment where kids will want to stay in the game and continue to participate in the game rather than being driven away because of pressure from outside sources that takes the fun away from the game for them.
And Mike, we've talked about it multiple times on some of our youth podcasts, is not necessarily you're going to create future players, but you're also creating future fans, but also future parents that want to introduce their children to the game of baseball.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I've gotten involved in the program as I've cut back after spending 45 years in baseball operations. I've cut back to a part-time situation. And my purpose in this is I want to help grow the game and I want to help kids. Well, we know they're all not going to be major league players. They're not all going to be college players. And a lot of them aren't even going to be high school players. But if we're developing fans, we might be developing future umpires, scorekeepers, what have you. And the game is wonderful because you can carry it from generation down to the next generation. And so if we can develop a love for the game in kids as they become adults, hopefully they're going to carry that same love for the game to their kids. And so we are continuing to respect the game and grow the game, while at the same time, I think we're able to help a lot of kids stay in a positive direction as they grow up.
Well, Mike, let me ask you this too. You're around the highest of the high. You've been around big leaguers for a long time. How many of those players didn't have joy for the game?
You know, I tell our kids all the time, I have never met a player that didn't love to play the game. You could say, okay, we're going to pay you $20,000 this year to play the game. And if that were the going rate, they would all say, I'm in. You know, and people lose fact because of the big money at the major league level now. The players love to be there and they love to play and they're locked in. And I always try to tell youth league coaches when I talk to them, you know, we need to tip our hat to you because every guy that we see on a major league field had people like you developing that love for the game and developing their baseball skills and helping them mature as people. And they are integral in that process in getting players to play on up at higher levels. So youth baseball and the people that are willing to put in the time and the effort to help kids, they are truly the grassroots of the game.
Shon, what are you seeing with some of the challenges right now?
Well, I think you guys touched on it. You know, I've always said if a player loves to play the game, you don't ever underestimate what they can do. You know, their abilities are going to say, you know, the analytics of where everything's going now, but you know, to measure how much a kid loves a game is really hard. And you got to kind of get in deeper than the surface with it and see where they're at. And, you know, sometimes just being around the game, you wonder how much kids are out there because they want to be out there and how much, you know, they're forced to be out there. And, you know, how much they're programmed and how much that they have the ability to think for themselves to, you know, kind of play the game in a you know, a stress-free environment, you know, learning from the mistakes that they make and you know, just going through the trials and errors of development. And you know, we program a lot of these kids to, you know, do as we tell them and how it's supposed to be played. There's a high organization in a lot of the stuff that we do as far as play the game, and some of it just has to be the, you know, the Sandlot version of, you know, letting them get out there and figure it out. And, you know, they
just watch them at practice.
Yeah. They'll develop.
You'll figure out if a kid really likes baseball or loves baseball. Just watch them at practice.
No doubt.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mike, you started out in the Phillies organization part-time, 1977, got with the Braves, then back with the Phillies, now with the Royals. Are we missing some of that mentorship maybe that we used to have? I always think about like the old guard kind of mentored the new guard coming through. Are we missing a little bit of that? Not just on the professional side, but maybe also on the amateur side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally think that's a huge factor. Uh, and part of it is because we have leaned toward analytics to such a high degree now. And everybody's using it, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's value, absolute value to it. But what has happened, it has pushed a lot of veteran coaches and managers out because they don't understand and can't relate necessarily well to the numbers. Uh, and so we have a lot of really young instructors in professional baseball now. A lot of them have very little experience. And I think we've lost an element there where we don't have older mentors in many cases. Uh, as I said earlier, baseball is a game of failure. It's a hard game to be successful at. And sometimes the player not only needs skill development, but sometimes the player needs some reassurance. He needs an arm around the shoulders. Hey, I know you're scuffling, but we believe in you. Relax, play the game. And it's hard when someone is only 3 or 4 years older than the player sometimes to provide that, where if you have an older guy that's been in baseball a long time, has been through and seen highs and lows that players have coming through the minor leagues, I think they can provide some of that sometimes. They have a feel for the game that some of the young guys just haven't had the experience to develop yet. So I think we're currently missing that at the pro level. I think we're missing it at the college level now.
Money
You don't
takes
see
away a
that
little
many.
bit of that. And that's a big thing, especially on the college side. You look at the amount of money that's being thrown around for coaches. Like money takes away a little
Yes,
bit of that.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's such a must-win environment at the major college level now that it's really hard for coaches to be patient and say, okay, I know you're scuffling. We're going to keep trying to work with you on this. We're in it to develop you. Well, they don't have time to keep trying to develop you if you're not producing pretty quickly because they have to win. And that's nothing. I'm not hammering on college
But that's
programs at
where we have
all.
to relay that to youth coaches. They're not at that level. They're
Exactly.
not at a win at
Yes.
all cost at the youth level. They're not going to get fired if they're not winning games at the youth level. So they need to. I know everybody sees that on TV, but I think that's where we get a disconnect with the youth coaches, where they feel like they have to approach it that way when that's not the case at the lower levels. Like it's not win at all costs. You need to be focused on developing joy for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The reality is if you ask 10 kids off a youth league team in September what their record was for the spring and summer, they're not going to be able to tell you. They won't remember. So, is it really that important that we win every game? Or is it more important that we develop those kids as people and as players and keep the big picture in mind and understand what we're really trying to do rather than just going out and, I want to be the big dog in town because my team's 14-1 or something. Is that really that important?
And Sean, for you all too, like what are some of the life skills development pieces that you're adding in, and really with the facility that you have there in Kansas City, it's about providing a place for kids to show up too, and gives them better options to show up rather than being in their neighborhoods. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, one of the plans that we had was to bring communities together, and grow the game of baseball in different parts of the city, and the life skills of just dealing with failure and learning how to be good at something that you like to do, and the work that it takes to be able to succeed, and a little bit of the grind, and the stick to itiveness that you need to have We've talked earlier a little bit about, just the self-management and, the dealing with emotions and being part of a team and making sure that your teammates, goals are more important than your own. And just, being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, I think those are some of the biggest ones that we can drive home to the kids in our program.
And you both took a pretty traditional path in your careers. You kind of worked your way up on both sides. Shon on the amateur side, Mike, you on the pro side. Mike, you talked about that with younger people getting jobs now. Are we missing a little bit of that timeline? Because there is a process to your career, correct, of building that timeline over time?
Absolutely, no question. And I think it has, and some guys have been very successful early on, but I think there's something to be said for managing people for a period of time before you become a farm director or a general manager. As I started, my first management time was going from an area scout to a regional supervisor, and I managed about 4 scouts. Well, then I moved to a national cross-checkers job. Now all of a sudden I'm helping manage the whole scouting staff. Then I go to a farm director and I'm managing a whole scouting department. Then I become an assistant GM and I'm managing 200 players in the minor leagues and about 100 staff members. So I think working through that process prepares you better to be a general manager, just because a big part of the job is dealing with people, both major league level, minor league, scouting, and getting that group to work together and understand whatever the team philosophy is and the way you want to go about things. And if you are thrust into one of those higher positions quickly without having done anything at the lower levels, it's really hard to grasp. You may be very intelligent, you may understand the game, but if you haven't managed people, there's an element there that I think gets missed on, and I think you become less efficient as an organization.
It's an emotional intelligence piece. Like
Yes,
you look at the
yes.
most successful people now, they have soft skills too. Everybody talks about those hard skills and you got to develop all these, but it's the soft skills now that people have that they can manage people and talk to anybody with different views, and it's a tough job there too. Do you feel like the farm director job is the hardest job in professional baseball, Mike?
It was absolutely the toughest job I've had.
I've
Yeah,
heard that
yeah.
multiple
It,
times.
it's it's literally 24/7 during the season. As I said, you're managing 200 players between the ages of 17 and say 28, and you're managing 100 staff members who all have their personal issues with wives and kids and what have you. So it literally, you live on the phone. Uh, every night's a short sleep night because somebody got injured in Scranton and we got to get somebody there by tomorrow afternoon and what have you. So yes, it is an extremely difficult job. It's funny because when Chris Getz was with us and was offered the White Sox job, we visited about it, and I saw him at the next winter meetings, and he said, "Wow, boy, were you right." Uh, and Mitch Meyer is finding out the very same thing now with us with the Royals. So yes, it is. You really don't have much of a life outside baseball during the season if you're running the minor leagues.
Shon, what did you take from your time at PBR?
Well, I learned a lot about, being evaluating younger players. It was a grind, trying to cover a territory. So it was really my first, experience in trying to see and cover a territory and the high school talent that was around and managing time and being able to see the people within the my territory, and making sure that I have had those bases covered, and then just trying to decipher, between the different talent levels and trying to find out where those players were at within my region. So it was really my first, kind of experience in scouting.
For a parent out there that's freaking out about their kid's ranking, what would you tell them right now?
Oh man, I would say that, just continue to get better and, that's the whole thing. Even
If
when
you
you
don't
get
like it, get
underneath,
better.
yeah, just continue to keep playing. And, I mean, gosh, I wish I had a crystal ball, and I'm sure Mike could say the same thing, but, kids
Well,
at
you get
16,
10
17
different
years old.
baseball guys in a room, they're going to have 10 different opinions on who can
Oh,
play and
yeah.
who can't play.
Yeah. I mean, it's just let the game sort it out, just keep loving the game and loving to play and loving to compete.
And Sean, you've touched every level of amateur baseball. I mean, what really have you taken from all of those levels to what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, I've been blessed to be around some really good people, from Dayton, and Mike mentioned Mitch Meyer. My son's playing with his son, and just, I feel like I can learn every day from different people. And, one of the things that I would just say is the youth level. Everybody wants to be labeled an evaluator, and we need more teachers at the younger age level. So if we could label ourselves as teachers, as opposed to evaluators, in the youth game, the game's going to prosper, and we're going to have more kids playing at a higher level, and kids are going to enjoy the game more. And we need to see it through a teacher's lens instead of an evaluator's lens.
Yeah, you're
And,
more of a facilitator. You're facilitating an experience
yeah,
for them. Just you need to, I think that sidetracks some younger parents about not getting into it because they hear the word coach and they're like, well, maybe I never played the game and I don't know much about the game. At the younger levels, you're a facilitator. You're facilitating a good
absolutely.
experience for them in the game.
Yeah, you're introducing them and getting that love for the game going.
How is JJ doing?
JJ's doing fine.
He's one of my favorites.
Obviously, the big league club's not playing as well as we'd like right now. But JJ was well prepared for this job, uh, and so he's hanging in. He has a plan. He knows the big picture, and we're staying with it. So he's doing very well, actually.
Mike, with your transition to doing all of those things, how much of a timeline was there for you to get comfortable with the job that you were doing as you moved up?
Realistically, probably 3 years. The first couple years, they're just new things keep popping up on you that you're not expecting. By the third time around, you're kind of more familiar with the cycle, what issues may come up at what part of the year. Uh, and so you're ready to make adjustments better by the time you get to probably that third time around.
How did you handle scout disagreements in the draft room with any of that? Because you're going to have disagreements. Because again, like I said, you have 10 different baseball people in the room. They're going to have 10 different opinions on who can play and who can't play, or who can pitch and who can't pitch. How did you handle maybe some of those discrepancies between views and opinions?
Yeah, no, you definitely want disagreements. If everybody agrees, I don't need everybody in the room, you know? So, and that was kind of the atmosphere I tried to create. Hey, I want your honest opinion, and everybody is we're part of a team here. And the goal at the end of the day is to get the best player we can get in each round that we select. So my job is to filter everything, and I want to hear everything you have to say. And at the end of the discussion, I'll make a decision and we'll place the player on the board where I think he fits. And then we move on to the next guy. And you're going to lose some arguments, you're going to win some arguments. But it's not about any individual in the room. It's about just getting it as close to right as we can get.
Are you seeing more of a blending with the player development side with scouting as well, too? Because it kind of seemed like in the past they were pretty separate from departments, but now it seems like some orgs are starting to blend. My thing, because, you'd be on the road with these area scouts and a kid would get drafted, and then if he wasn't performing well, they would try to throw player development under the bus. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was an ego thing trying to cover like who was drafted, but it just seems like there's a little bit more of a blending where the player development people, because they do have to coach these players, and maybe they see a side of it at the minor league level that maybe the scouts don't always see. It just seems like there's maybe a little bit more of a blending between those two departments now.
Yeah, I think there absolutely is. We generally try to crisscross some guys. I started doing that in Philadelphia. I would take a couple of our development staff before spring training and send them to ride in the car for 5 days with a couple of our area scouts. And then during spring training, I would make sure we took time during meetings. Okay, who'd you see? What'd you think about him? You got to make a quick decision now. You may not get back to see him again. Where do you think he's going to fall in the draft? And, and then after the draft, we would take some area scouts and put them with a rookie club or 2 rookie clubs. And you're out there every day. If you're in Florida or Arizona, you're out there early in the morning and you're going through the work with them, and you're there during the game, and you get a feel that some of these kids, yeah, we've gone over this 5 times and they still haven't figured it out yet. So yeah, I think you have to do a lot of that. But it was very interesting once that process gets going. Guys aren't afraid to pick up the phone. A manager, well, this kid's scuffling right now. I'm going to call the scout. Maybe there's something going on at home that I don't know about. But you have to break down those barriers so that everybody, again, understands, hey, we're all part of the same team here, and our jobs are to make this player as good as we can make him. He's part of our organization now. So you have to create that atmosphere, and I think more organizations are much more aware of that now. Yeah, the old days of, well, he could play when I put him on the bus, and then the development guys say, how in the world could you have sent this guy to us? So those days are kind of over, I think, and there's a much better blending of the 2 departments.
Once I made up my mind I liked a kid, I tried to not go back and see them until after he committed, because I just felt like I would start to pick them apart. And yeah, if I didn't like them, I would maybe go back to see if maybe I missed it. But once I made that decision that I liked a kid, I was like, okay, I'm in on him. I don't need to see him again, because I just felt like I would just start picking him apart then, try to talk myself out of it.
No question. Yeah, you can see a player too much, without a doubt. I learned over time as a scouting director, if typical first rounder, we might have 5 or 6 different looks at him. And I would try to take the positives of what each scout saw. And unless there were negatives that were just absolutely consistent among 3 or 4 or 5 of those guys, I would kind of toss the negative out. Okay, typical amateur player, he wasn't good at that on a given day. But I would take those pluses and say, this is what he can be if it all fits together. So I tried to utilize the positive and limit the negatives, unless it was, like I said, a stretch of where 3 or 4 guys all saw the same negative. Now I've got to take a step back and say, do I need to reevaluate this?
And that's where your experience as an area scout comes into play, correct? Because you had watched a lot of games up to that point. How long did it take you to develop that piece where it was like, okay, I can go watch a kid and maybe it reminds me, I know analytics guys don't like talking about comps, but I still think that comps work because imprinting is an actual thing. If somebody looks like somebody that's maybe a big leaguer, he probably has a chance if he walks like a duck, talks like a duck. How long did it take you to develop that piece, your eye of where, okay, I can go watch a pitcher from the side and go watch a hitter from the side, and they're going to stick out and remind me of somebody that I've seen along the way?
Yeah, I think that takes 5 to 7 years to start developing, a decent library in your head. And once you get to that point, and it really helps as a scout, you don't want to fail, but the failures make you learn. Because if you sign a kid and you really believe in him, and the kid doesn't get out of A ball, I take a step back and say, okay, what did I miss here? There's something obviously that I missed.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do to get better? So I think it's a process that you can only speed up to a certain point. You literally have to see a lot of players to develop that library of comparisons. And I am a believer in comparisons. The analytics are great at the college level, and they're very useful. At the high school level, in my mind, you throw them out, because the level of competition varies so much from area to area, to school size. A 6A school in California is going to be different than a 2A school in Connecticut. And so the analytics really don't tell me much at all on amateur players in my mind. So if it's an SEC conference player versus an ACC conference player, whole different deal. Now the numbers start to mean a little something to me. So I think you have to filter and understand where the analytics fit and where they don't.
Shon, you and Darwin were instrumental in getting us there for the Barnstormers events, and I do appreciate that. And it's fabulous, but how has that side for you guys kind of evolved over time? And I mean, it did start with Dayton. Dayton's huge on community outreach. Is that really the impetus of everything? Was Dayton being like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do"?
Yeah, I mean, our mission statement for our sport development is to just be stewards of the game and to grow the game. We have pillars that we try to hit. One of them, obviously, being coaching development. Our player development department is played an integral role in all of it, being able to have ABCA barnstorming in, and we've had we do coaches and coffee programs where in the wintertime, Alex Zumwalt will talk about some hitting and some of the analytics of the game and what it means for youth and high school baseball. We've had rules. We go over rules all the time with coaches because at the youth level, it's there's a lot of those rules, those obscure rules come about a lot in youth games. The lower you go down, and just the development of overall coaching. With the stuff that we've done. So it's been a big piece of what we do. And just trying to develop all facets of the game within our community, not only just the player development piece, but coaching development as well. That goes with any the ABCA barnstorming programs or anything else that we could do internally in the city.
Dayton's still one of the best talks I've ever heard about a life of service and why it's important to help your community. And I mean, what drew both of you guys to that, a life of service? Because scouting, coaching, it is a life of service. You are providing a service. What drew both of you guys to a life of service?
For me, it was, I look back as a kid, you don't appreciate it, but I look back now to all the people who helped me develop a love for the game. And so for me, it's an opportunity to maybe give back and help some other kids develop that same love for the game and things that help me grow and mature into a responsible adult. And so as you get older, I think you appreciate more those people that gave their time to help you make those advancements. So for me, it's an opportunity to kind of give back and hopefully do some of the same things that some people did for me.
Mike, you started as a part-time scout. Who nudged you to be like, "Hey, I think you should be a full-time scout"?
A guy by the name of George Bradley, who George has passed away now. George had scouted me in American Legion baseball. Didn't see him for about 7 or 8 years. I was a grad assistant at the University of South Alabama, and he came in to cross-check some players, recognized me. And for young players, it's important because he liked the way I went about playing the game. And he thought some of the characteristics that he had seen in me as a player would make me a good scout. And so he hired me on a part-time basis with the Phillies. And then I was able to move on when Atlanta had a full-time opening in the Midwest and so on. But without George, my goal at that time was to be a Division I head coach. And had it not been for George, I would have never gotten into pro ball probably.
And Shon, what drew you to a life of service?
No, I probably echo what Mike was saying. I think the game, just draws you to it. I got some, DNA in me, about baseball lifer and just trying to give back to, my experiences to the youth and just grow the game. It's the best game in the world, and that's the way I see it. And I think it needs to prosper, and kids need to play it, and they need to respect it, and they need to pass it on to the next generation and go to games of all levels and just enjoy the life skills that baseball teaches because it's like no other in my opinion. Just the trial and error and the failures and the triumphs, the wins, the losses, it's all microcosm of life. And I really think there's some good values that you can learn in life and in baseball. And It's my love, and I want other people to enjoy it and care about it the same as I do.
And Shon, with the development piece, was it always going to be baseball and softball?
Yes, yeah, we are we're building out softball. We're as devoted to softball as we are baseball. So everything that we're doing on the baseball side is the same as what we're doing in softball.
And you have a beautiful facility in Arizona. I ran a Barnstormers event at Chandler Gilbert, so I drove out there. It was a ways away from Chandler to talk to John Waggle because you had some of your prospects there working out, and it was pre-spring training, so I did go over there. Mike, is it too nice for minor leaguers now?
I tell you what, it's unbelievable how it's changed the last few
I mean, they
years.
get more meal money now. The housing's taken care of. Is
Yes.
it too cushy for them now?
I tell you that there's no reason now if they don't take advantage of what they have, it's their own fault. A registered dietitian with every club. We provide healthy meals. The standards have improved so much in the minor leagues. The quality, the bat that you can actually see in the indoor batting cages now in the minor league complexes and places. So, all of those things have improved so much the last few years.
Yeah, the minor league manager said the housing piece was the biggest adjustment for those players last year. They weren't scrambling trying to find housing coming out of spring training, and when they move up
Yes.
levels, they're not scrambling to try to find housing. They felt like, from a quality of life issue for the minor leaguers, they felt like that was the best adjustment that was made for the minor league players.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think especially the double A, triple A level guys who by then are starting to have young families and what have you, it was a huge, huge upgrade for them.
Shon, for the switch to going from college to what you're doing now, I mean, ultimately, what was that decision for you? Is it a family decision? What was the decision
Uh,
for you?
it's just the right move. It's just the path. I'm following the path of water, and that's where it's taken me.
Yeah.
I was just blessed enough to be in the right spot at the right time when the Royals started their scout teams, and just being part of it all is been great. It's been a great learning experience for me and put me around some really good baseball people. So selfishly, you try to surround yourself with good people, and I've been lucky enough to do that.
Mike, is it better having kids or grandkids?
Oh, grandkids. Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah, you
I
spoil them
figured
and
you were
send
going
them
to say that.
home. Yeah, yeah, no question.
Shon, you were in the ABCA Youth Committee meeting this year for the first time, and I appreciate you jumping
Mhm.
on the committee with us. It means
Yeah,
a
thanks for
lot. I mean,
having
we've
me.
got the Reds in there now, you all, the White Sox. It's huge, huge deal for us to get you guys in there because I think
It's big for us too.
when people hear, okay, these professional organizations are on the youth committee, I think it adds some credence to what we're trying to do on the youth side, where it's like, okay, these organizations care about youth baseball. They really do. And so their recommendations you should probably pay attention to. I know we've been around for almost 80 years now, so we do have some street credit built up. But again, when you can have professional organizations in there, makes a huge difference for us. But what were your thoughts coming out of the youth committee meeting in Nashville this year?
Well, I was just I was blown away about the passion of the people that were in the committee and their ability, to impact their parts of the country. And as far as sometimes we seem like we're really far apart on how youth development should go, but we're all pretty passionate and pretty close to what we want to accomplish with everything. It's just trying to tie those pieces together, and it was just great to see a room full of people that really cared, like I said earlier, about cared about the game as much as we do and as much as I do personally, and just seeing the growth of youth and the ideas that are out there, and the ability to put them into play.
Yeah, I think because everybody has challenges, but I do feel like we're
Yeah.
getting the right people in the room now. It's a very diverse group now, much different than when I first showed up. It seemed like it was a pretty similar demographic when I showed up, and now we're adding females, minorities, Major League Baseball, people that are running house league. I think we're getting the right people that are all passionate about trying to help the game at any level. I think we're starting to get the right people in that room. We've got to continue to get better. And I mean, what would your hope be in the next 5 years for what we're able to do with the youth committee?
I think providing leagues that onboard kids that can, just grasp all kids, all youth players to play, and then they can find their way through the game on their interest level and their ability level, and just have a place and a home and feel like baseball's a sport that they can play and strive, and succeed in, and be whatever. I know we talked about changing a ball size and the success rate, putting more balls in play, and making the game more enjoyable, like Mike was talking about, with less standing around and just more action. So supporting those leagues and getting that fundamental piece really ingrained in the kids, to where now if the game takes you to higher levels, then you have the ability to do that, and you have the confidence to be able to do it, because as we all know, this game can wear on your confidence a lot. And I think
It's learning.
it's a great,
I
yeah,
try
there's
to
places
reframe failure to learning now
yeah,
for the younger kids. Like it's
yeah,
not failure, it's learning. The game is going to show you what you need to get better at. It's a learning deal. So you're either successful or you're learning. I think that's a great way to reframe it for the young kids. Like, okay, the game's showing you something, so you need to learn something from it, and it's not a failure thing. It's just all part of the process of growing and finding mastery. That
yeah,
self mastery that
absolutely.
all players find, the ones that reach the highest level, they find that self mastery, and they're able
Hmm.
to learn from their failures and move on. Well, Mike, that's the other question about a big leaguer. They have really short memories, correct? They don't
Absolutely.
focus on their
Yeah.
failures.
No,
I think about
no,
Ricky
no.
Henderson. I mean, he talked about himself in the third person. I think there's a good story about Ricky Henderson. He would never watch bad at bats. He only watched his good ones, because I think that's a great thing. Like,
Yeah.
see yourself having success and doing well. And you talked about guys struggling in the minor leagues. I read a good story about Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig wanted to quit in the Yankees organization. So they had to send an old-time scout down to talk to him and reframe that. Lou Gehrig thought he should get a hit every time, and when he wasn't, he thought he stunk and he should quit. So the Yankees sent an old-time scout to explain to him that, hey, 3 out of 10 is good. 4 out of 10 probably hasn't ever really happened outside of Ted Williams, so you shouldn't really focus on 4 out of 10 or even
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yeah. Without a doubt. No question. It's interesting you say that. We were having that conversation with a Royals 11U team yesterday, that very conversation. And you have to understand that you're going to fail a lot. Uh, and if you just think in terms of that, use the actual word fail, that's not what we're doing. This is a process, and we're always preaching. Understand you're in a process here, and you're not going to go from point A to point B in 2 practices. This is going to take time, and we're going to keep working at it and having fun as we do it. And you're going to see yourself make little steps along the way where you're going to keep progressing, and eventually we'll get it. And then we'll move on to the next thing that we need to work on. So trying to get kids to understand that, I think, is really important.
And I love working youth camp still. I do love it. And how much fun is it for you, Mike? You've been on the pro side forever, and Shon, you're on the college side. How much fun is it working with the young kids now?
It's great for me because the enthusiasm, uh, they're naive. Uh, they want to come up and talk about big leaguers. It kind of reminds me of the years when I was 10, 11, 12 years old and waiting for the weekly arrival of the sporting news, because that was the only baseball news I could get for the most part. And I'd watch my Saturday afternoon game of the week because that was the only major league game I could see.
This week in
So
baseball,
it's refreshing.
This week in baseball was my favorite thing on Saturday mornings. Was
Yes.
watching This Week in Baseball.
Yes.
That was my favorite
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
about Saturday mornings, was watching This Week in
Hmm.
Baseball.
Yeah. It's huge. And now to
Baseball
have
bunch.
these
Remember the
kids come
baseball
up and
bunch?
Baseball
talk
bunch,
about
Johnny
some of these
Bench,
things.
the San
Great.
Diego Chicken.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
They
Yep.
still show the video of I think it was the chicken trying to bunt, and he whiffed it, and a poor kid got hit by the ball.
Yeah.
That video resurfaces every
There
once
was
in
a
a
good
while.
one of
Yeah.
Rick Dempsey that was the replay of the George Brett pine tar. That was a good one back in the old days.
Oh
So,
yeah. Okay.
mhm.
Yep.
Do you guys have a fail forward moment? Do you have something that you thought was gonna maybe set you back, but looking back now was maybe something that pushed you actually forward?
For me, I thought I was going to be a major league player. And then I tore a rotator cuff my freshman year in junior college after just having been drafted by St. Louis. And I rehabbed it to the point that I could play at the Division II level, but I knew that, you know, that dream was not going to happen. So my goal then became to be a good coach, and had no idea that I was going to end up in scouting and move on to other things. But for me, I had to come to the realization, okay, plan A is probably not going to happen now. So is there a plan B that I can do and that I'm happy with? And I was very fortunate in getting to live my plan B and really enjoy my work for 45 plus years.
Well, how many World Series rings do you have?
Six,
Which you have never got it as a player. No chance.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes,
Six is a
yeah, yeah.
lot. Can
I would have
anybody,
had to been on those old Yankee
besides
teams
Babe
way
Ruth
back
and
when.
Lou Gehrig, the 27 Yankees, is there anybody out there that can say they have 6 World Series rings?
Yeah, I would say it's a very small number of people that could say they have six. Yeah, absolutely.
Shon, do you have a fail forward moment?
Mine would just be, man, when I was younger and going through grad school, I was going to be a teacher and a high school coach, and kind of got into lessons and did some stuff, and it's kind of catapulted me a little bit. But where I was at as a graduate assistant and trying to become a coach, I had some setbacks a little bit to where, and just got into doing some stuff privately and being around good people has put me where I'm at. I'm very thankful.
Because building champions, I mean, it just seemed like when I got to Iowa, they weren't around, and then you started to hear like in a good way, it's like, okay, building champions is going in Kansas City, and they're starting to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, we had some good players early, and some success with those teams, and kind of built a good crew around those guys.
Shon, with the long-term athlete development piece with the younger kids, I know you guys have a strength and conditioning facility there. I mean, what are you guys focusing on with the young kids from a long-term athlete development piece?
Right. Under our sport development, we're connected with KU Med, and Dr. Key, the Royals doc, has been very instrumental in youth injuries and being able to diagnose them early, get them into him. Our sports medicine piece with Dylan Wilson, under our sport development, is all about arm care. Pitch count. We follow pitch count, the USA pitch count, really well. But I mean, we also are dealing with kids that have knee issues, the Osgood sliders, and the growth of all those things. And we talk about arms all the time, but we got to get the core and the strength piece of that. And so we have a sports medicine piece in this that includes the strength and conditioning and making sure that it's a total body growth here and not just arm. But with our connection with KU Med, I'm actually jumping on and doing a podcast for our website with KU Med here next week on talking about some of the youth injuries that are in youth sports, not just baseball, but what we see. So trying to diagnose them early, and trying not to put a workload on them over a weekend. And I mean, you play 3 games on a Sunday, 4 games on a Sunday, and the workload of youth kids and the fatigue is probably the most prevalent piece to injury, right? So how we manage that workload on them, and get them to high school healthy, and just hopefully get that message into the parents, and through the coaches.
There was a really good research paper that came out about 15 years ago that they researched Tommy John and shoulder injuries, and what they
Mm-hmm.
found is like a majority of that was instability in the hips because it works up the chain from a kinetic standpoint, the energy does. So what they found is like a lot of it was hip immobility, where there was an
Yeah.
imbalance between the hips, which is what was causing arm injuries more than the arm itself. So, and I think that's something that gets lost in the shuffle with a lot of people from a training standpoint is like you have to make sure that the hips are and the knees are aligned as well because all that energy moves up the chain. And if there's an imbalance downstairs, it's going to happen in the arm at some point, and they're probably going to blow out at some point. So make sure you
And a
focus
lot of
on the
these,
lower half also.
a lot of it is starting at 13,
Yes.
and it's starting to go up into high school. And by the time we get them in high school, and that's already a problem.
Yeah.
We can hit it earlier and kind of understand it.
Shon, you said you were using a modified baseball, correct, with your
We
young
we
guys?
Well, we have used Playfinity, and the Playfinity ball is something that we did a PG Cares camp a few weeks ago. We had over 350 youth players here, and just trying to help some kids get on board into the game, and what the Playfinity ball does is a Bluetooth that hooks up to your phone, and it monitors how well and accurate you are and how much you're catching it. So, it's not a velocity ball. It's just how well you're throwing it and how well you're catching it. And it turns into a competition, and you want to see energy out of kids. It turned up the heat a little bit on those kids, and there was some emphasis on playing catch that you really can't get with a regular baseball. And that's what we did. And it was probably one of the best stations of our camp. And the kids, it's a brand new concept out of Norway, and we're actually trying to
They've
implement a
been
little
in
bit
our
more.
office, by the way.
Yeah,
They've come
yeah,
and met with us, so
they
it's
did.
fun. Like a gamification piece, especially
Hmm.
for like moms and dads that are going to go out and play catch with their kids. It does. Mike alluded to that. Kids like video games now, which is cool. And by the way, Mike, I played more arcade games than anybody else probably when I was growing up. I just had to
Sure.
ride my bike to Washington Square Mall in Evansville to actually play arcade games because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
couldn't afford an Atari. I mean, the Atari has been around since the early '80s, so we've had video games for a long time. But it's just a little different piece now. But if the more you can gamify stuff like that, the Playfinity ball is tremendous. And hey, where's that information feeding into? Because I know there it does kind of ding and click a little bit too, right? The Playfinity ball.
Yeah, so they're developing some of the programming now, from what I understand. Our coordinator for sport development, Andrew Richards, has been the one that's been working closer with them than I have. We've just been implementing it, and they're developing some of the software as we speak. And we just got it on the front door with it, and it's been phenomenal. And they're still, working on some quirks of things, but it's as far as putting a little bit of a competition into gameplay and catch and just fundamental. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Mike, you were in a really high stress job. Did you have any evening or morning routines that you would do to kind of keep yourself level, or was it just white knuckling it for the many years that you were making tough decisions in professional baseball?
My favorite thing, it kind of disappeared. I would love to get up and have a cup of coffee and read the morning paper. And that would kind of be an escape for me to just look at what else was going on in the world besides baseball and our organization and whatever. But now without the morning newspaper, it's a little different. Now I get up and look at my phone and drink the coffee and read, we'll read a few articles. But that was my few minutes of, I guess,
They call it quiet
tranquility.
time.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
big part of longevity for people is having some sort of quiet time. And it might not be in the mornings. Not everybody's a morning person, but have some
yeah,
sort of quiet time throughout the day where you can get settled in because it's hectic. The world is hectic right now. What's going on
yeah,
outside is hectic. There's a lot of
yes,
noise. So you need to have some quiet time to be able to recenter yourself too. Sean,
no
do you have
doubt.
anything?
No, I try to take a little bit of time after the kids go to bed just to catch up on world events, and kind of get away from baseball, because you can fill up your whole day with baseball, whether it be in a professional level, high school or college, and just trying to find an exit from it a little bit.
What are some final thoughts or something that I should have asked you guys that I didn't? Mike, I'll have you go first, and then Sean, you can finish up.
Uh, for anyone who's interested, our Royals Athletic Development website, we have an array of things on there that might help any youth coaches. We have a coach's corner. Uh, a thing on athletic medicine. I mean, there are various topics there. We have some podcasts recorded. Rusty Kuntz, who is an outstanding outfield base running guy, for example, Dayton, what have you. So there's really good information available on that website.
Yeah, and just to add to that, our goal and our mission is to be good stewards of the game and to grow the game. And so we're filling up, you know, any information that we can possibly get to coaches, players, parents. We're building out, a parent curriculum through our website to ask those questions on, kind of what's important now. Because parents have the anxiety of comparison and all the stuff that's going on. So, being able to build out that parent piece too, so they can kind of navigate this youth baseball space and in their own kind of accord. So, if there's any questions that people would have about our program, just jump on there and feel free to reach out to me and we'll be able to help them. It's not just a Kansas City or regional based thing. I mean, obviously we're here to grow the game, and wherever that takes us, we're definitely here. In the wintertime, we'll have all kinds of stuff that is available. Not only Rusty Kuntz and Alex Zumwalt. There's a lot of player development people that will get involved in what we're doing, so we can get the best information to anybody who wants it for no cost.
I really appreciate your guys' time. I know you guys are busy, but I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me. I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.